Savage with XBRL US, and you are here for the XBRL US webinar on analyzing public company financials, excuse me, mobile applications and other tools. We're very pleased to have with us today a couple of great speakers. And before I introduce them, I'd like to run through some logistical points. Just for all of our speakers, if we can just make sure that we're on mute unless we're speaking. And for those of you attending as registrants, you can submit questions by clicking on the Q&A link that you see at the top of your screen. We will take questions after each demonstration and discussion because we're going to be showing some applications and we're sure that you're going to have questions about each of those. Also, for those of you who are getting CPE credit for the program, we will be taking CPE questions at 2 different points during the session. And make sure that you click on the appropriate button to record your response, and so that we can make sure that we get your CPE credit at the end of the day. The CPE will be sent out within about 2 weeks of the program. We're also going to be recording the session, and we will be sending out the replay to the program tomorrow, along with information about other events that we have coming up. So with that, I'm going to go to our first slide, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we'll be covering today. Our first speaker is going to be Alexander Falk. Alexander is CEO and also co-founder of Altova. Altova is a provider of software applications and solutions. Before Alexander started Altova, he was with Apple Computer as a software engineer, and Alexander has a number of US software patents under his name. So Alexander is going to cover SEC data through mobile devices. After Alexander has spoken, we're going to go to CPE questions, and then we're going to turn it over to Campbell Pride. Campbell is president and CEO of XBRL US. Before taking on the role as CEO, Campbell led our technical and development efforts as chief standards officer here at XBRL US. And prior to joining XBRL US, he was executive director in institutional securities at Morgan Stanley. And before Morgan Stanley, he was a partner at KPMG. Campbell is going to take us through how to access SEC data through some APIs and templates that we have made freely available to use. After that, we'll be covering some additional CPE questions and then closing out the program. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alexander, and I'm going to actually give control over to Alexander to take us through our first session.
Thank you, Michelle, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alexander Falk, and I would like to tell you a little bit about our mobile software and XBRL server products that allow you to do financial analysis of XBRL filings directly from the SEC's EDGAR database, and how you can do that on your mobile devices. So the architecture of our solution looks as follows. We have a workflow server called Flow4 server that is going to run nightly jobs to download all the SEC filings from EDGAR's database that are filed every day by public companies in the US, and then those filings at night are being processed by our XBRL server product called Raptor XML plus XBRL server. And what we do there is, and I'll walk through those steps in more detail a little bit later on, what we do there is we process, validate, and analyze the financial data and normalize it into a common format so that it's easily comparable between companies. And then we store it in a SQL database on the server side. And the last piece of the puzzle is our mobile application development environment called Mobile Together. Mobile Together server is the backend of that and runs on the same hardware as the other 2 server products to make that data available to the mobile application that I'm going to show you next. So that's sort of the backend quick architecture overview. Diving into the details, the application that I'm going to talk about is called Company Financials, quite simply. You can actually find that in your app stores on your mobile phones and download it at any point in time. It's available for iOS, for Android, for Windows Phone, and even on your laptop or desktop if you're running Windows 8 or 10, or if you have a Windows 8 or 10 tablet, such as the Surface Pro, just runs beautifully on those devices as well. So it's totally cross-platform, and the best part about it is it's free. So go ahead and if you want to do that after the webinar, we'll have the links available on the screen, or you can at any point in time just go to the App Store and search for Company Financials there. We're not just going to give you that app for free. You also can actually get the sources for that app for free on GitHub if you want to do a customization of it, or learn how it's built, or build your own more in-depth financial analysis. So that's another piece of the puzzle that I'm going to cover in the further some slides further down here. So let's look at how this Company Financials app works. When you start it up, you can look up companies by either company name or by ticker symbol. If you do it by company name, you'll get a list of all companies that match. If you do it by ticker, you'll probably find it right away. And then once you've found the company you're looking for, we essentially show you the financial data in a normalized form, similar to what you would see in, I don't know, Yahoo Finance, Google Finance, the respective TD Ameritrade or Fidelity or whatever brokerage firm you're using, financial systems. But we do it straight on your mobile device, and there's, at least to my knowledge, not any other app out there that gives you that data on your mobile device right now. So this is really a powerful way for looking at company financials. And as I mentioned, it's updated every single night, so you have the latest filings available the next morning. When you look at the first page here, that's our income statement, obviously, and we're gonna be able to show you that either annually for the last several years. In the table underneath the chart, you can only see the last 4 years because we simply don't have that much space on a mobile device. But in the chart, we show you the XBRL filings all the way back to when it became a mandatory requirement for the filer to file. And if you want to see the data in a larger format, you can either change font sizes with these little A+, A- buttons here on top, or you can simply rotate your device if it's a tablet into landscape format, and then you see the chart a little bit better. Similarly, if you want to see balance sheet data, you just tip on the balance word at the top of the screen, and then we can look at balance sheet information rather than income statement. And you can again pick annual or quarterly data. Here in this screenshot, it's the quarterly data for Apple. And in addition to showing debts and assets in the graph, we also show debt to asset percentage as a line to give you sort of a little indication of what's happening there. As I mentioned in the beginning, we're making the sources available for this on GitHub. So if you want to plot different data or look at other options, you can easily change that at any point in time. Last but not least, we've got the cash flow statement, and we can also look at that annually or quarterly. And then finally, we're calculating a set of common financial ratios that are usually interesting for investors to look at. We can look at them either based on the most recent quarter, or we look at them for trailing 12 months. And in this particular case, we're plotting gross profit margin and various other ratios on the chart, and then giving you a table underneath of all these other common ratios being calculated. Now, where does the data come from? I mentioned at the beginning, it comes straight from the SEC's EDGAR system on the back end. It's then processed as XBRL filings and loaded into our database. But we give you the direct link to the source data. So if you see something in those charts, you go like, huh, I wonder what that really means, where it comes from. You can tap on the filings tab, and then you get a list of all the 10K and 10Q filings with their filing date and period end date, and what the SEC calls the accession number. And that's an actual link. So if you tap that, the browser will open with the actual XBRL filing straight from the EDGAR system in your browser. If you want to do some more in-depth research on the raw data underneath, since what you see here is normalized and sort of a high-level presentation only in the mobile device. So how did we build this? Let's talk a little bit about the backend and what it does. I mentioned that we're using a SQLite database in the backend simply because it's a free open source database and entirely sufficient for the backend for such a mobile solution. Every night we are going to the SEC's RSS feeds for the EDGAR system, which give us the listing of all the filings that have been filed with the SEC on that particular date. And we then download them into our server environment, gather all the 10Q and 10K filings, and download those. The SEC RSS feed actually references those filings as a separate tag in the RSS field called the enclosure, and that enclosure links to a zip file that we can download from the SEC servers. And then those zip files contain the actual XBRL data, the taxonomy, the table link bases and whatnot, together with the XBRL instance document, which is then being processed and validated with our XBRL server software. And the interesting piece here is that, as you know, the US GAAP taxonomy can be quite complex. So we're using a set of heuristic rules to map all those facts from the XBRL financial statements from the presentations to high-level abstractions for the balance sheet, the income statement, the cash flow statement that you've seen below, so that we can compare them more easily. It's a step normally referred to as normalization, and we are again open sourcing the code for that, so that you can look into that exactly. And if you determine that you want to map it differently, you're free, of course, to do that. And then once we've done that mapping, we store the data in the database so that it can be retrieved very quickly by the mobile app server and then by the mobile app client on top of that. The workflow automation, the backend, is done using our product called Flow for Server. It's essentially a workflow server that allows us to schedule either job execution based on a time trigger or job execution based on an event trigger. In this particular scenario, we're using a time trigger, and we're simply doing it at 3 a.m. in the morning. If you require the SEC data quicker, you could, of course, modify the system to your own needs and immediately download the filing the second it pops up in the RSS feed from the SEC, and then automatically process it at that point in time. But we just felt the nightly batch job for this demonstration was entirely sufficient. And then last but not least, we built the mobile app that I showed you the screenshots before using our mobile together designer. It's a cross-platform mobile application development environment that allows you to build the entire user interface, the programming logic, event handling, as well as all the backend database server functionality in one unified design environment. And the nice thing about that is not only does it come with a complete simulator that lets you actually test everything directly on your developing machine, but you can also then subsequently do automatic code generation for your mobile apps that you want to then send to the various app stores. So what we do here is we do complete code generation for Android, iOS, Windows Phone, and Windows apps for the laptop and desktop straight from our development environment. And what we generate for you is not just the respective sources and libraries, but also the complete project. So then all you need to do is open that with Android Studio to generate the Android app. You open it with Xcode to generate the iOS app, and then with Visual Studio to generate the Windows Phone and the Windows apps, compile all of those, and then submit them to the respective app stores, and you're done. Very simple and easy to do, and it's one unique design environment that allows you to generate all those mobile apps plus the server backend logic all at once. The actual design file for our company financials app is also available on GitHub as an open source if you want to look at that and play with that. And the designer itself is also available for free, so you can modify that at will and play with it. So how can you get started using this company financials app yourself. As I mentioned at the beginning, you can simply download it right now from the app stores on your phone. You can just search for company financials, or you can search for our company name, Altova, and you will easily find it, and then download it for free. If you want to go and do a deeper dive and build your own customized version of an app that does financial analysis slightly bit different, or maybe aggregates data downloaded from the SEC with your own internal filings or internal analysis, that can be done because we've open sourced it all for you. So you can find the actual code for building the database on GitHub. Just go to github.com/altova/secdb. That has all the Python code that drives our server software to download the filings and process them. On the backend side, you will also need a copy of our Raptor XML server. The link here is on your screen. You can simply go to altova.com and also search for Raptor XML in the search bar there, and you'll find it. And you can download the Mobile Together server backend software from there as well if you want to host your own mobile server to power your mobile apps. And for all of our products, we always provide a free 30-day license key code, so you can try it out and test it yourself. And last but not least, I mentioned if you want to customize the mobile app views and graphs and show different data, you can get designer software for that from this link, altova.com/download/mobile together. And the design file itself is available on GitHub too, so you can easily modify that as you see fit. And that pretty much gets me to the end of my portion of the webinar. We have a couple of blog posts available on this as well. So if you want to go to blog.altova.com and then search for XBRL, there you will find all the background information on this. And I think at this point in time, I'm going to turn it back over to Michelle, and we'll see if there are any questions. Thank you.
Alexander, thanks very much. Yeah, we do have a couple of questions. One question that came in is there access to the notes as well?
You mean the speaker's notes?
No, I think he means, is there access
notes in the XBRL filing? Okay, yep, I see what you mean. At the moment in the mobile application, we're not processing the notes to make them available inside the mobile app, but that's certainly an extension that could be easily done. We simply need to take them from our Raptor XML server software and then store them in a separate database table, and then add that to the mobile application. It's certainly a good idea for future reference, but it's not done right now.
Okay. Another question on customizing. Could the app be customized to bring in other types of XBRL data, like FDIC data or non-US public company financials?
Yeah, absolutely. Since we give you the full source code for it, you can easily customize that to take the data feeds, for example, from UK, from the filing authorities there, and process that in a similar way. Probably difficult to normalize those to be exactly comparable to US filings, but you could simply build a similar database for the UK easily, or do it for FDIC or other financial statements. That's one of the reasons why we make the sources available, is so that people can customize that.
Okay, great. Another question that came in is, can we extract the information from the app into Excel? And can you download it into Excel?
From the mobile app into Excel, nope, you can't do that. Because there's not an easy link from
Alexander, you're breaking up a little bit. Your audio is breaking up.
Oh, sorry. Let me see if it works again.
Oh, there's working now. Okay.
Yep. So from the mobile app directly into Excel is not an easy path, but we could, of course, easily build an Excel plugin that takes the data from the same database that's used as a backend for the mobile application. I think that would be the easier path to get that data into Excel. So you can use the exact same Raptor XML server software to process and validate the filing, store them in a database, and then easily pull it from the database straight into Excel.
Okay, great. You also talked a little bit about how you process and validate and normalize the data. Can you expand on that a little bit? And also another question that in addition to that just came in is, how many companies have you normalized?
Well, the normalization process that we're doing is not a manual process. We're not in the business of doing what S&P Capital, IQ, or other organizations are doing, where it's manually analysts that actually review the financials and process the data. We are strictly focused on automating the process based on what's in the XBRL. So what we've done is we've looked at what's the typical calculation link-based and presentation link-based structure, and how do the facts roll up into high-level concepts, and how can we detect which facts should be rolled up into the high-level concepts. And we're looking at concept names in the link basis. We're looking at what the calculation link base tells us to do this heuristic normalization roll-up process. And that's all defined directly in the source code and easily visible for anybody, and can easily be modified and updated as a result of that. It's not 100% accurate for every single possible company out there, because clearly the taxonomy itself can be quite extensible, and obviously companies change how they report data, maybe from one quarter to the next, and any of those errors will go straight into the database here. We're not trying to provide high-level audited data that comes from a human review and analysis. We're just giving you straight the data from the XBRL, and if there's something that looks fishy in the mobile app, that's exactly why we have the link straight back to the SEC's server, where you can actually look at the underlying XBRL financials directly.
Great, thank you. Actually, we've got a couple of questions from or the same question from two different people, and that is about extensions. How do you handle extensions in the app?
Yeah, as I mentioned, the problem with extensions, of course, is that we need to roll them up into the normalized presentation that we're doing, and the way we do that is based on the calculation link basis. So if the extension taxonomy has all the right information, we can roll it up correctly into those higher level constructs. Also, when you think about the extensions, that's typically done on a very fine-grained level. If you look at the financial statements, the way we present it in the mobile app, it's a very high-level view of the financial statements. So on that level, there's not a lot of extensions happening usually.
Okay, great, thank you. I think given time, we're going to need to switch over to CPE questions now. But at the end, we may have a bit more time to ask more questions. And one question I just got that's just sort of a logistical question is, is this being recorded and will it be available to watch later? Yes, we are recording this, and we'll be sending it out to everybody who registered for the program. So Alexander, I want to thank you very much. We may get additional questions, so stick around if you can, and as we go into Campbell's presentation.
Thank you.
So first, before I turn it over to Campbell, we're going to have two CPE questions. Okay, so you should see the first question up on your screen here, which is, source data for the mobile app shown is drawn from which of the following? So click on the button that seems most representative. Is it from HTML files from the SEC's Edgar system? Is it from XBRL files from the SEC's Edgar system, or text files from the SEC's Edgar system? So please click on the appropriate link if you're getting CPE to record your vote. And we'll give everybody about a minute to record their response. Okay, so we're going to close this out in just a minute here. So if you're getting CPE credit, make sure that you record your response, because otherwise we'll have a hard time posting getting that back to you. Okay, let's move on to our second CPE question. Okay, XBRL stands for Extensible Business Reporting Language, Exceptional Business Reporting Language, or Extensible Business Rendering Language. So please record your response. If you're getting CPE credit, okay, and another question came in from the audience. Where can we download the presentation? And we'll make that available also. We'll be sending out the replay tomorrow. So please record your response. Great, thank you. We closed out that poll. I am now going to turn this over to Campbell Pride. And Campbell, I've stopped sharing, so you should be able to pick up and begin sharing your screen now. And Campbell is going to take us through some APIs and templates that are open source and that are available to anyone to begin using today.
Thank you, Michelle. So we've had a number of calls in the past, which some of you may have participated in, which walks through an API that we released several months ago. And this is a follow-up to that, but to show you additional things that you can do with the API. And now API sounds like a scary word, but for those of you maybe not technical, you can think of it like a waiter in a restaurant. If you want some food, you basically give the order to the waiter. They take it away, they come back, and you get the food. You don't have to worry about how to make the food. All you have to do is get your order right. And so an API is very similar to that. And so what we've made available on our website is just really a way that you can ask for information, and the API will take care of all the complexity of cooking it and getting the right amount of sauce in it, et cetera, so that you get something out which is edible, or in this case is hopefully usable. So the menu, if you were to think of it that way, of what you can ask for, is documented on our website, and we have a section on our website which I'll show you now, which allows you to go and get the menu of data that you can get. So if you go to, hopefully you can all see my screen. If it's a little bit smaller, I can make it a little bit bigger. If you go to the XBRL US website, we have a section on using data on the right-hand side here. And there's something here called Demo and Tools, and it's called a Data Analysis Toolkit. And basically, we've called it a toolkit, basically, and in this toolkit is the menus that you can use for the data you want, or called an API. Now, we have all of that as in this thing called X on a GitHub site. You can watch, you can see how you can use it. There's a little video here. But if you want to see what the menu is, we basically put it on this site here, linked to the GitHub site. And this is really a piece of software that allows you to put up software code and allow people to look at stuff and download it, and also be able to let people track changes. So as the menus change, or we add more options, more things that you can eat from our API, you can come and look at this, and you can sign up for notifications so you can see when things are changing. But there's two things here that are probably of interest. One is there's some templates which you can go and look at. And if you look at the templates, this just gives you examples of what the meals look like. So for example, you could look at margins. This is just the template, and there's an Excel version, and then there's also a Google Docs version. I'll just open the Google Docs version. This explains how the template works, what it uses, and you can go to Google Docs. And all this one is just showing as a margin comparison between some different companies. Some comparison data. Now, and what this is doing is this is basically going and pulling the API. You can imagine as the waiter, and it's asking for different meals, and it pulls them all together, and then we just collect them all into the spreadsheet and then show you what the data is. So, that's just an example of how the API is being used. But the actual API itself, or the menu itself, if you go back to the Data Analysis Toolkit here, we have something called API. And this is basically like the menu. And there's some different menus you can choose from. And there's one called XBRL values. And what this one does is it basically says, hey, you can ask for this information. So you can ask for, I want data for this accession, which Alex mentioned earlier, which is a particular filing, or I want data for a particular element, and I want it for these members. So you can basically ask for all this stuff. And then what it does, and this is just showing you what it gives you back. An example of what the meal would look like. And it looks a little bit cryptic here, but basically, it's just basically saying, if you ask for the senior notes element, it's basically going to come back for a given company, and it's going to give you the amount, the decimals. This is everything you're going to get back with your request that you give to the waiter, if you thought of it that way. So that's kind of what it is. So basically, how do you ask? How do you ask for this food? And then basically it's basically just a link, like a link that you'd put into a website browser. So you can put this information in. In this case, you can see we're asking, give us the XBRL values for operating leases for this year, for this company. And we have some of the things here, like some funny words like Ultimus. That's a funny thing on the menu. You might want to ask the waiter what that is. And that just means give me the latest value that was reported for the company and how many years. So this is the API, and this is how it's used. So I'll just give you an example of some of these things. XBRL values is really used to pull back a value from a filing. So we have an example here. I'll just show you. So this is a complicated spreadsheet, but I'll just look at a particular item in here. You can start to build up the API here, and you can start to look for different things. So in some of these, what we're doing is this is calling this XBRL values API. So I'm going to show you how that works a little bit more simply. So in a minute. So one of the ones we wanted to talk to you about today was a couple of other items on the menu, or a different menu, and one of these is called the XBRL children. And what this does is you can ask for any element that's been reported for a company, and then you can say, give me all the children of that element. So that can be really useful if you want to say, oh, I want to know what all the components of assets for a company are. So you can pass into this, you can pass the element that you want, and this one you can see I want the income statement abstract, which is basically the top of a presentation of a balance sheet, and you can say give me all the children of it, and give it to me for the consolidated statement of earnings, and give it to me for the presentation link base, please. And then if you pass that to the API, then it's going to come back with all those values. So here's an example here where we've said, we want it for Berkshire Hathaway, we want all the children of assets, and we want it for the balance sheet, and we want the calculation children. And that's just entered as a URI. It looks very long, but it's really pretty simple. What I'm just asking for, in the balance sheet, give me the children of assets that are the calculation children. And then what it does is it returns a bunch of things, and each of these represents just like an item you'd see on the balance sheet. This is cash and cash equivalents. This is available for sale securities. This is, we've got a couple of these. There's available for sales for equities, for debt, for other investments, investments in common stock, etc. So it's telling you all the elements. It's not telling you what the values are. It's just telling you what the what the items are. And in addition, it's got the calculation weight included, and it's telling you some other information, how deep it is in the tree, etc. As a child, as a grandchild, as a great-great-grandchild. So it's telling you all this information. All this information is coming. You've asked for it, so here comes this meal. So you know what to expect back. So one of the things that we've done is we've put some little pieces of code into Excel and into Google Docs, which allows this information to be shown in a spreadsheet in a meaningful way. So I'll just give you an example. This is Exelon, but let's just have a look at Berkshire Hathaway, for example. So what we've done in this spreadsheet is we have our function, and we're looking for XBRL children, and we've said, look, give us the XBRL children of liabilities, and we've asked for a given in the statement of financial position in this filing here, which was a filing which was made by Berkshire Hathaway last year. So and what it's pulling back, it's pulling back, what was the element, what was the what are all the children of liabilities. So it's pulled all these elements back. There's a couple of things here. We've got the calc. Basically, we're just pulling out the effective weight. And there's certain pieces of all that information comes back to our spreadsheet, and then we can tidy it up and put it into a nice format in this Google Sheet. But we can do that in Excel as well. And you can see I'm saying call this API. What I've done in this spreadsheet is we've just basically created a nice thing called the API just to put it in one place, which is basically saying, hey, go and get me these XBRL children. This is the XBRL children menu that it's calling. So in every single cell, you can do like a request for a meal and it'll return something. And so this is returning for you all the children of liabilities. And then we have some other APIs that we're calling here, which will then go and call the values for, for that element, and then it can pull it back. So we can see, this is just to show, does their balance sheet balance. So you can see here for liabilities, they've reported $283 billion. But then also the spreadsheet's doing some other stuff as well. We take a lot of these different menu pieces and we put them all together so we can see, or what over the different business segments, what are their liabilities. Berkshire Hathaway report this information on the financials, on the face of their financials. They break it up into these different business segments. And you can do things, because it's an API, you can just keep making requests. Hey, I don't really like what you bought out, waiter. Can you, I don't really want liabilities. I've changed my mind. I want assets, for example. And then what you can do is you can change that. Then it's going to go out. It's going to request that information, and then you can see that it's going to go back and it's going to pull all the information for the assets component of the balance sheet. For example, goes and gets the children. It pulls them back. That's kind of a simple example, but here's a more complicated one for a company called Exelon. Exelon is a utility. Utilities have a lot of subsidiaries, and they will report those subsidiaries all on the face of their financials. So you can kind of get a bit more complicated. For this one, we've said, look, give us the statement of cash flows. And so we're pulling back all this information. This is all the elements that are used on the statement of cash flows, the calculation of them. So we can get, the change in cash and cash equivalents. That's what we're calculating. That's what the company reported. They match exactly. And then you can look at this, okay, but you can also break it down by a number of these individual companies that they're reporting in the group. So you can kind of get a much bigger picture. You can reorganize the financials pretty easily into a way that kind of makes sense for the way that you look at it. And so this is just showing how you can use that particular thing, the XBRL children. So that's one thing that we've added. If you want to look at that, you can go and look at the API. You can play with it a little bit. You can take one of the templates that that are on the GitHub site. You can take those. You can play with them, and you can change them. And so, but if you want to do that, if you want to take it and use it, the one thing you can do is just go and open the template, and you just go to edit, to file, and you can make a copy of it, and you can play with it. It's free to use. You can pull this data. You can take one of the Excel ones. You can use that as well. The other thing that I want to show you as well is, this is all very well if you just want to do individual companies, but let's say you wanted to go and do, a whole group of companies. And so one of the things that's kind of interesting to do is for the pharmaceutical industry, we've gone and got a list of, these are all the pharmaceutical companies that we want to look at. So we've got a whole bunch of CIKs for them. And we have one single formula here. And what this formula is doing is basically it's going out and it's saying, go and get me all the values for all these companies. And so basically we have a couple of things here. It's calling the XBRL values menu, and it's saying, give me all the values for these elements, for all these periods, first quarter, first 2 quarters, cumulative third of quarters, fourth quarter, the year, third quarter. Give it to me for 2014. Give it to me for all these pharmaceutical companies. Give me the latest value they reported. And so when we run this, it pulls back all these values out of the database into this Excel spreadsheet. And then what we've done, just to show you how you can use it, then we've taken it and then we've broken it out and said, this is cash flow information. When you do the cash flow, you'll do a first quarter, then you'll do cumulative 2 quarters, then cumulative 3 quarters. So if you want to compare quarter-on-quarter cash flows, it's traditionally it's been really manual and really hard to do. But now we can pull this data instantly. You can do it very, very fast. So now we can see these are the cash flows these are operating cash flows for the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. We can get the average. And then what we've done is we've compared that to the third quarter assets, and where the cash flows are negative and their assets, we work out how many months remaining of cash do they have based on their current assets. So you can get a pretty good idea of what the economic stability of some of these companies are. You know, these guys can keep going for 62 months, these guys for a lot of months. They've got a lot of cash or a lot of current assets. So it gives you a good idea if you were going to go and invest in a pharmaceutical company. You can see how tight they are on cash, how quick their burn through is. And this is particularly interesting for pharmaceuticals, which a lot of them are not having revenue coming in, particularly the startups. They're going through level 1, 2, 3 drug testing. You know, the key thing for them is to make sure they've got enough money to get through the various trials, levels of trials. So if they've got 3 months of cash left and they're they haven't got through level 3 trials yet, it's going to tell you either A, they've got to raise more capital, which is going to dilute the shares that you're going to buy, or B, they're not going to be able to get capital and they're going to go probably liquidated or get acquired. So this is kind of useful information. This is very hard to do by going through and pulling all the financial statement. These are tiny little companies, some of these, but it gives you a good idea. I mean, the ones that are blank are companies that have positive cash flows. You know, they're probably ones that you may want if you're looking for a stable cash flow and you think pharmaceutical industry is something that you want to invest in. You can kind of widow out the ones which may be more high risk versus the ones that are more low risk just by simply doing that cash flow analysis. So using a tool like this API makes it very, very easy. And this API is just one single formula that does this. But one single formula is just saying, go and give me all this data for these companies and pull it back. So once again, if you want to change one of the variables, you can. You know, wait, I didn't really mean to order the steak. I really wanted the fish. So you can change the same thing. I can change it to 2015 because, you know, I don't really care about 2014 anymore. And so what this is going to do is it's going to go out and it's going to pull. It's loading the data here. You can see it goes out and it pulls all that. It's quite a lot. So it's pulling all that data down. And then we can recalculate the spreadsheet. So this actually will take a little bit of time actually. So we'll leave that running. But it gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of being able to building a lot of this data, and you can do a lot more work than you would have been able to do traditionally. So back to the margin, I'll just show you the margin comparison. This was another one we looked at before. This is available on the GitHub site that you can download, just to show you how you can change these variables. So here we can see you got FedEx, 8 years, but you know, you can change these if you want to look at Apple, for example. You can pull this. This is just basically going to go out. It's going to get you the data. It's automatically organizing it for you, so you can pull the information down. And then we've just put some charts so it can automatically chart it. The nice thing is that you can get the data. It's going to be pretty up to date. Apple's latest quarter hasn't come out, so you're not going to see the latest set of results. But you know, to the SEC, the earnings announcement has. And so you can see this, you can see what it is. And you can set the variables to go back how many years. At the moment we were going back 8 years, but you may want to see, I only want to see 4, whatever it may be. So you can put the stuff into spreadsheets and you can create effectively your own little mini apps that you can use. So oh, I got an error on that one. I'm just going to refresh it. Let me refresh that one, sorry. I timed out on me. This one I'm actually asking for a lot of data, so what can happen is that it can get a little bit overloaded if we ask for too much. So what I might do is, Michelle, if we can keep this up, but maybe I can hand it back over to you if we can see if we've got any questions.
Great, thanks, Campbell. Yeah, we do have some questions that have come in, and the question is, let's see, on the XBRL US API, does it normalize the financial facts for comparison similar to Altova's product?
Yeah, so what we're doing is this is a raw, you're basically taking the data raw. So the API is not touching the elements per se. We are normalizing the periods. So for example, you can see on my screen here, and this is the 2015 quarterly data. You can see what we're doing here is we've normalized them into first quarter, first half, and 3Q. So this is based on fiscal years. We kind of look at the dates and then we say, yeah, which quarter is this based on the balance date, and then drop them into a quarter. So there's the appropriate quarter. So there's normalization going on there. One of the things we plan to, at the moment, it's fiscal year only. So if you're asking for apples, third quarter, you're going to get, up to June. One of the things we're going to put in there is just a flag. So you could ask for the data to be calendarized. So when you get it back, if you ask for apples, third quarter, you'll actually get their September results, which is their fourth quarter. But then you can do quarter to quarter comparison between them. On the elements themselves, no, we're not normalizing that. To normalize that data, what we've done is we pull it back into the spreadsheet, and then we've been normalizing that data in the spreadsheet. So it's just a way to use it. So at some point, if we chose to normalize, if we chose to normalize the data, then the API could also pull the normalized data as well. The point of the API is to show you, and so you can start to build stuff and use it. And then you can take, one of the things we plan to do in the future is make the API code available so people can go and take that and build their own stuff as well.
Thanks, Campbell. Another question that came in is, are the APIs available to be used in products? Can we use these in any products?
There's no restriction on you doing that. The one thing I didn't talk about is there is an API key that needs to be passed to the API, and what that means is it's just an identifier. So if you wanted to build a product and you wanted to use this API, you could do that. We're not going to stop you. The only hesitation you may have on that is then you're relying on our process, and it's not necessarily going to be if something was to happen, or that there's no guaranteed delivery time on it. But what we could do, if you are interested in building a product, please get in touch with us, because we'd be more than happy to give you what you need to go and basically replicate what we're currently doing in your own environment.
Okay, another question that came in, Campbell, is and just for for the individual who asked that question, or if any of you are interested in building products and want to leverage the APIs in some fashion, just send us an email and at info@xbrl.us, and we'll be sure to get back to you and see if we can set up a call to discuss further. Another question that came in for you, Campbell: can we compare Google's revenues to Apple's sales revenue net?
Yeah. So what we do in the API is it allows multiple variables. So if you look here, let's just go back to that example. You can still see my screen, right?
Yes.
So as you know, in the net margin, if we can put Apple in here. So we're pulling Apple's revenues in, but they don't use the tag revenues. But what we do is in the API, you can put a list of multiple variables. So we put in, the elements that people are typically going to use for revenue. So you can put multiple in here. It's not 100% accurate, but basically, if they've used revenues, take that. If they haven't used, take sales revenue net. If they haven't used that, take sales revenue services net. So that we'll pull in all those values. And then we've just written in little formulas in here that say, if this one, take that. If not, take this. So effectively, the normalization is happening in Excel formulas, which is fine for if you just want to pull together some quick analysis, and that works. We have built some more complicated models where we can pretty much work out where we can normalize revenues for any company, but it gets a little bit more complicated. But things like that XBRL children that we looked at, it becomes very useful, because then you can say, give me the income statement, then give me all the if I don't have revenues, then give me all the children of profit loss, which are credits. And then pull those back, and I'll take those as a surrogate for revenue. So even if companies have used extensions for revenues, you can still get some pretty good numbers.
Great. Campbell, another question: can the APIs developed be used with non-US data?
At the moment, we're only using the SEC data, but one of the things that XBRL International wants to do is standardize these APIs so that you can pull them for anything. And there is some companies have got some data. REL, for example, is a database which when Fish is loading up a lot of data into that from other jurisdictions, and we're looking at writing the API to work over that database as well. So you could use the same API, you could just point it at a different database, and then it would pull that data back. And one of the things we do want to do is try and it may not be this API, but do come out with a standardized API so that you can pull this information very easily. And one of the things we've done, one of the APIs we have here enables you to pull data out of the US GAAP taxonomy. So you can pull out things like the, what's the label on this element, or what's the, any other information that you typically see in the taxonomy. We can access that. And so first we're going to try and standardize those so that it becomes very easy to pull this data about your filing or about the taxonomy straight into a spreadsheet and do analysis in a spreadsheet if you want to.
Kale, another question. If there are data quality issues if there are quality issues in the data, how do the APIs or templates handle that?
What we've done is we just put checks in there so we know that the data is correct. So for example, on this one, this is an example of the cash flow statement. We're pulling out what are all the things, and we just have a check. Okay, this is what the total we calculated. This is what the total they reported as an aggregate. Do they match? Do we have a difference? No, we're good. Oh, we have a difference here. Let's go and have a look what's going on with this. Or in the case of Berkshire Hathaway, there was an issue. They forgot to put a calculation link base in, so we got a difference. So then we know, okay, what's this? All right, we know it's a difference. There's a problem here. Yeah, we see they forgot to put this calculation in. So then let's just adjust for that in the case of the spreadsheet. So we're aware that there's a data quality issue and we can deal with it. But then, for a lot of them, they're totally fine. This is like GE, we can see they're fine, or Ford. For the spread, I'm not saying their filing's fine, but for this case, you can see that, for the thing I'm looking at, it's reconciling out. So that's what I would do. That's probably good practice anyway. If you're taking any data, if you can reconcile it against the data that's in the filing, it just makes sense. Then you can get a little bit more confidence about what you're using.
Great. And we're going to take one more question before we go to CPE questions. And the question is, can you explain how extensions can be handled in APIs?
Yeah, so we have the ability in the API that you might want to say, just pull out all the extension elements. You can specify, if you go through this API menu, it's almost like you can specify, oh, I only want food, a beer that's from Japan, or I can say, I only want elements that are extensions. Or if I'm picking up the children of something, give me all the children of assets. Give me all the children of assets that are extensions. I can pull those back, and then I can say, okay, I know these are a type of asset. So you can use the API to build up lists of things which tell you information about what are extensions. And remember, these are like, you really want to use these as little building blocks to build something greater, to do better analysis. And generally, it's not really, this is not really a solution to a problem, whereas it's like a whole lot, it gives you a bunch of tools that you can, if you have a problem, you can use these to, stitch them together to solve the problem. So if you're looking at, depending what you want to do with extensions, you can, and we deal with this all the time. I want to see, I want to make sure that these members on this dimension add across, and have they created an extension for any of them? Yeah, they have. Okay, I'm going to treat them the same way, or whatever it may be. Or this element, can you tell me what its parent element is? And then I'll treat it the same way as I treat the parent element. So the API allows you to pull information about that extension, about information that's around it, about its attributes, so that you can write some little Excel formula that deals with it for you.
Great, Campbell, thank you very much. We're going to go back to our CPE questions now, and So if you can stop sharing.
I'm doing it now.
Okay. Okay, great. And I think, actually, I'm going to begin sharing my screen. Go to my slides. Okay, I think we're actually seeing the polls right now. Can you see my screen, actually?
I can see the poll question, but I can't see your screen.
Okay, sorry about that. All right, let me just bring my, there we go. Hopefully that works. Okay, the first, or the last two poll questions. The first one is APIs and templates shown by XBRL US extract which kind of data? FDIC data from bank institutions, SEC data from public companies, or corporate actions data from public companies. So just select the option here. Okay, and then we'll be going to our next poll question in just a minute, so make sure that you record your response so we can close out this poll. Okay, and we're going to go to our last poll question, which is XBRL makes public company financial data easier to analyze for several reasons. Which of the following statements is not true? The XBRL standard makes financial data computer readable. The XBRL standard makes financial data more timely. The XBRL standard makes financial data freely available, or the XBRL standard makes financial data more granular or detailed. Which of these statements is not true? So just record your answer to that, and then we'll close out this poll. Okay, and for those of you, again, getting CPE, you should get your CPE certificate in about a week or two. And so we're going to close out this poll. Okay, and then the last slide is, oops, excuse me. It just gives you a little bit of a heads up on some programs that we have coming up. But first, I want to thank Alexander Falk from Altova and Campbell Pride from XBRL US very much for the presentation that they just gave. I hope it was useful for everybody. Please join us for our next webinar, which takes place March 23rd. And this one is going to be a program that we're doing jointly with the CFA Institute. And this is on financial fundamental analysis, what analysts can do with structured data. And we're going to have with us Emil Ethnices from Bloomberg. And we're going to be talking about the types of data that is accessible and available through XBRL and how to get it. So again, thanks very much for joining us, and we'll be sending out a link to the replay of today's program, so you'll get that tomorrow in your email. Thank you.